Hello, and welcome to another My Music. Now, this one's a bit different. I've done one of these before, and I thought, well, I'll do one again because I can, because it's my podcast, and I'd like to do whatever I want to do. So today, my special guest is someone that normally sits where I am and talks to musicians and interviews them and asks them lots of questions. So he may ask me questions, I might ask him questions. We don't quite know how it's going to pan out, but that makes it even more exciting for you, the viewer or the listener at home. In fact, if you want to join in, you can. You can scream at your screen, or you can just close your eyes and enjoy the conversation as it goes along. We will be back shortly after this little video from Analog Trash, which gives you just enough time to go and get a cup of tea or a drink of squash, whichever is your preference.
Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop.
Welcome to my little abode, my little place where I do this. Like yourself, you do a lot of these interviews with musicians, and I really wanted to know, to start off with, I'll give you a moment in a second to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you. But I wanted to know today, really, why did you start doing it? What's it all about? So, take us back. Who are you for a start? Because some people might not have seen you, although if they're all over Instagram and they follow me, they probably follow you as well. So tell us that, and then tell me why did you start doing it?
Well, firstly, Graham, thank you very much for having me on. My name is Baker and I'm a radio presenter. I broadcast on a station from Middlesbrough called CVFM Radio, and I started out doing podcasting, just love it really. And why do I do it? It kind of takes me back to lockdown really, and the COVID years. I was in my last couple of years at school, didn't really know what was happening, didn't know what I wanted to do, and it was at that point I was listening to a lot of kind of radio podcast kind of things, and then that's where the love for it kind of developed really. And I had that kind of love for listening to people's stories really, and everything, if you want to put it that way.
Cool. There must have been someone that you were listening to that was doing that inspired you. I know growing up, I always loved listening to or watching Jules Holland and listening to, his late night show, watching him interview musicians. I always thought it was a big step up in many ways from some of the interviews that I'd heard before. Andy Kershaw, I think, was another one that was really relevant to me as well. The old grey whistle test, that was a great show back in the day. Gosh, I'm showing my age. But where they actually asked bands and musicians and artists some really relevant questions, as opposed to the sort of path that I grew up with on a Saturday morning, where it was, what's your favorite biscuit? Or if you could choose what kind of animal you were, and you saw these musicians, like, I can remember watching people like Simon Le Bon sitting on Saturday mornings TV, just squirming, having been asked the most ridiculous questions that had nothing to do with the music or the fantastic song that they've just put out with these great lyrics, and you just think, oh no. And there's definite, for me, it was a definite kind of real interest in journalists, interviewers who were really passionate about the music. That's the thing that really drew me to that. So who were the big influences for you?
No, that's a very good question, because I always find it quite hard to answer this kind of question, because there's actually nobody in particular.
Okay.
It was kind of more like the music that had me invested, if you can kind of get where I'm coming from. And then I listened to various different bits of radio, but it was always kind of the music that connected with me. if I'm being honest. And then I was like hearing different bits here and there, but that was what kind of pulled me in. And then having a love for conversation just had been kind of with me all of my life, because I was always somebody that was a talker. And yeah, that was just in me, and it was kind of the music got me hooked, and I kind of knew that I wanted to be involved with bands and speaking with them and everything.
Yeah. Was there anyone in your family once you started doing this stuff and you started being on radio and whatever as well? Was there anyone in your family then sort of like said to you, "I knew you were going to do that. I always knew you were going to do that."
Oh, I think you could probably ask people, have I always been a talker? And the answer would be yes. But it's kind of a weird one, actually, because music does run in my family, because my granddad is a musician, and he has been for most of his life. He's played in local bands and everything. So it's quite surprising that I haven't followed that path. But I always say the reason I'm doing what I'm doing now is because I was too useless to do anything like that.
Really? Have you ever tried? Have you ever like tried writing music or playing an instrument? Did you not play the recorder in school, for example?
I did that, and yes, I did try a few times, but honestly, Graham, didn't go well. Didn't
No.
go well.
Oh, I'll tell you what, I can completely relate to that. I've talked to a few famous musicians about that before now on here, which is that was the first instrument they got me playing, was recorder at school. I became very, very good at miming. I just couldn't keep up speed wise. Suddenly got once we got past London's Burning, which incidentally is the first tune that everyone learns on a recorder. Once we got past London's Burning, that was it. I just couldn't. There was no way that I could read music at the speed which we need to play it. So that was embarrassing for me. But I did always sing. So I was. So I don't know what you know about me, but I was a singer in a band, several bands actually, before doing all of this. So, were you involved in music in any other way? Were you involved with like sound with music, or literally just wanted to, your investment in music has literally come from wanting to talk to musicians and spread the word about what they're doing?
Yeah, probably that, if I'm being honest. It was kind of like I was in like COVID, and then I started listening to loads of music, and like I say, I kind of knew what I wanted to do from there. And although this has kind of like transpired into radio, I did start out in podcasting, and I still do it now occasionally. The radio is kind of the bread and butter now and the main project, but it did start out in podcasting.
You see, the way I look at it is that podcasting is like having my own radio station.
Yeah, I think there's a very mutual connection.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
I started life in radio. So I worked for a radio station, and I had a afternoon show at 3:00 in the afternoon on Where FM, as it was then, up in Sunderland. And but I kept getting thrown off because I was quite naughty. What we had, yeah, well, we had this show where it was like a magazine style show in the afternoon, and there were different presenters did different days of the week, and I was on a Friday, which is a perfect day because it's nearly the weekend, etc.
Always the best.
Always the best. I also did like graveyard shifts when I first started as well, which like a lot of people have to do. If people don't know what a graveyard shift is, it literally is that. It's like you do like 3:00 in the morning, something like that, playing 1920s records, which are really difficult to get ready because back then they used to have to do it on vinyl as well. So, and they only last for about a minute and a half. So you're constantly like lining up the next one. But we had this afternoon style show, and we interviewed members of the local community, and they came on and whatever. And I went along with that for a while, but then I realised that some of the people that I had on were really getting on my goat because they were big upping themselves, right, about things that really I didn't frankly think that were quite important. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back was I had someone on that said that they were a floral artiste. And actually, I said, "Oh, so you arrange flowers then, you know?" And at which point they got really angry with me because no, they're a floral artiste. And so at that point, I took that to my studio manager or station manager, sorry, and I said, "Can we do something different on the Friday? Can we?" Because I was also part of the local comedy club. Can we make up the guests on the Friday? And so that's where my Friday show was born. So we did during the rest of the week, it was actual guests. On the Friday, I had guests that were made up, and I interviewed them as a straight man interviewing these guests, but all of them were just complete nonsense. So we had people like Airskin Reetboot, who was a guy that could climb inside a milk bottle, for example, or we had a guy that could juggle 5 filing cabinets whilst playing Spanish guitar. And
very creative.
Oh, it was lovely, but it did get me in trouble a few times. But that was the start for me. And now I like to do this stuff on here because no one's going to tell me off, so it's all right.
Yeah, that's a massive thing. Definitely, I agree.
So tell me, how did you get your lucky break in radio today?
Just through kind of mutual connections, really. I knew a guy that knew the station manager of where I am now, so it was just kind of a simple connection like that, really, that hooked me in. And I always go by the quote, it's kind of who you know rather than what you know. I think that's quite an important thing. And yeah, it was just kind of like that, really. And I am where I am now, very happy, done a lot of great things there, and just constantly wanting to climb up that ladder, really.
Where is next on the ladder for you? Where do you see yourself going? Are you interested in, dare I say, look, no, we won't tell anyone, but dare you say, are you going to try and get to a different radio station that's got, a bigger listenership or whatever? You say, no, not at all. Yes, yeah. Or do you see like TV getting in the mix? Because obviously with a lot of what you do as well now, you do it in front of the camera as well. So would you like to see yourself doing some more TV, that sort of thing?
It's a hard one, really. It depends. If you're on about a Jools Holland kind of thing, then that's probably something that would be really, really cool. But yeah, I'm not really somebody that likes to plan too far ahead, really. I'm kind of like, I just like to kind of continue and then almost see where I end up, if you kind of get me there.
Oh, no, totally get your drift. Let life just move on during the day. Now, tell me, when you go to approach musicians to interview them, etc., how do you get them to come on the show? Because sometimes that's quite hard work, right? People don't realize sometimes you can just ask people and they say yes. Other times you've got to go through their PR or their management or whatever else. And sometimes you have to go backwards and forwards with, oh, here's the ratings for the show, or this is what the listenership's like, or whatever. How do you go about finding the people to come on?
Luckily for me, I've never really had any of that. It's always kind of been just a simple direct message over social media, whether it be Instagram or sometimes you email them, and just, I think eventually as you go on, you kind of build up a profile and you kind of name some of the other people who you've had on and everything like that. And I've always been better with just organising it directly person to person. I've always found that kind of the best method. But yeah, just kind of reaching out via social media and email, really, and just reeling off all of the information about who I've had previously and everything, and hoping that they'll be interested.
I think there's a lot of musicians out there now that genuinely want to do this. They want, the opportunity to get out there and talk about their music with someone that they feel really appreciates it as well. What kind of feedback do you get from musicians afterwards when you've done interviews? Do you kind of get that kind of feedback that, oh, that was a great interview? Actually, that I get told to do a lot of interviews where they're a bit, like that, and that was good because you really show me that you passionately care about the music, and that's nice to see.
Yeah, I've had that. I think it's always nice when somebody tells you that it was a great interview. And personally, I always like to do it with people that I like the music of, because then you feel quite authentic within that, because you can kind of relate to them and show that you really do care. And yeah, it's just kind of like that really, just kind of, it's a hard one to explain, but just kind of handing it over to them really. I don't like to put any restrictions on or anything. Just
I've got to ask you, right?
platform.
Because and again, I won't tell the other people, right? But favorite interview so far, that of all of the ones that you've done, who was there someone that's really surprised you as well? Was there someone that you interviewed that you thought, wow, I just didn't know that depth of story or whatever from them, and or they they surprised you that they were a much nicer person than you thought in real life or whatever?
Well, I think the obvious answer is, if I always go back to my podcasting days, I think Alan Shearer was an obvious one. I mean, highest ever Premier League goal scorer. He was just an absolute gentleman. So that was one I always look back on, and it's kind of surreal because he doesn't do that many interviews. But the only reason I got him is because of the other name I was going to mention, actually. Reza Ruddock helped me with a lot of stuff. He was one of my first initial guests when I was doing podcasting, and he kind of liked what I was doing. So he said, I'll give you my number, and every week you can, every couple of weeks you can ring me, and I'll get you a new guest. And it's just when the likes of Shearer, Redknapp all started coming through. So them ones are just very hard to look past. But in terms of music, there's been some great ones. But Rick Witter from Shed 7, he was another one of my first guests. He's an absolute legend. Always loved chatting with him.
Out of the people perhaps that you've interviewed more recently, you said Shed 7. I mean, I'm going to see Shed 7 soon, by the way. Do you go? Yeah, I'm going to see them in Bristol with the Sherlocks as well. Do you go and see many live bands yourself? Just even when you're not interviewing the people that are in the bands, do you go and frequent gigs yourself quite a lot?
Yeah, I'm at gigs all the time. It's kind of probably my number one thing. With not do it, if there wasn't any gigs, I probably don't know what I'd do. I've probably only got three things I'm interested in life, and that's football, gigging, and doing the radio. So
it's kind of perfect, really, isn't it?
yeah, only the three things I need. But no, I absolutely love gigging, whether it be an established band who I'm going to see, or whether we're doing press at like a local festival. We've got some great ones up here. It's just something I absolutely love.
So maybe kind of an ideal for you would be a guest that I've had on several times on here was B Charlotte, and of course, like during the Euros, during the World Cup, she sung the Scottish national anthem at the Scottish game. So that would be kind of like an ideal situation for you, would be to go to a football game, speak to the musician who's singing the national anthem for a band, and combine all pleasures together.
Yeah, that would be a good thing.
There we go. Maybe make that happen, etc. in the future, etc. Do you ever find that there's a question that people find more difficult to answer than others? It's that one that I've just asked you.
Yeah. Not really. I always like I always say my interviews probably get pretty predictable because I always keep them on a kind of the same format, because I always like asking them about themselves, kind of coming together, influences, new stuff they've got out, what they've got coming. So it's all kind of relevant things, really.
Yeah.
So I always kind of do follow that same structure.
I'm kind of a halfway house. I tease people with the same structure. So quite often there's things that I quite often will hang it on, like where their music journey started, their influences, their listening habits, etc. But I'm also quite happy to take it off wherever it goes. So we've had conversations about NLP practicing, philosophy, astrology, book writing, culture change, governmental issues, the works, the gamut of it, politics. When it comes to talking to musicians, I quite like that, because for me, I think one of the things is that I see, importantly as well, do see it that like musicians outside of music are humans as well, and I think a lot of their music will come from their humanness, the other things that they're interesting in or that interest them outside of music. Do you get a sense of that as well? That, actually a lot of musicians have got a lot of other things to talk about.
Yeah, I think it depends a lot, because obviously you do have, like you say, some bands that kind of have a different perspective in their music, maybe related to a certain subject, whether it be politics or something like that. I'm not good with that, so I do kind of like to keep it out. But yeah, I do agree with where you're coming from, and you do sometimes get kind of a sense of that when interviewing.
Yeah. Now, can't leave you today. And thank you so much for coming on and talking to me about this. It's always fascinating finding out, what it's like for someone else on the other side, etc. But I can't leave you without asking you the ultimate question, which is, who haven't you had on yet? Who haven't you interviewed that would be top of the dream pile for you in terms of an interview? If tomorrow I could say, right, we can get any artist in the world on to interview, who would that be?
Okay, well, I'm going to go big here. This hasn't happened with anybody yet, so it will be pretty privileged honor to have the chance to do it. And get the Gallaghers in. I'll do the first exclusive reunion interview with them if they're up for it.
Both of them together
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
same room. Yeah.
First ever one.
Do you think it is going to happen? And if it does happen, who do you think will do that interview?
Well, I was reading some stuff from Liam on social media, and it sounds like they don't want to do any.
Hmm.
I always thought they may go on, like, maybe a Jonathan Ross type show. I thought maybe they might go on somewhere like that, like probably like some high profile TV show or something like that. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen, actually,
Really?
unfortunately. But all of us that are interested in why they decided to do it when they did.
I think if anybody was going to do it, it would probably be Zane Lowe.
Yes, he's another good one, actually. He gets all of the big ones, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he would ask. I think he would be the kind of person to be quite blunt about it, and be quite like, was this money or was this art? I think I think he would go straight for the jugular and try and unearth the truth there.
I did forget about him, actually. He would be a very good shout.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there you go. So, listen, Noel, Liam, if you are listening and you fancy actually like keeping it kind of really low key and real, our friend here is ready for you. Okay. I mean, it just, which just slide under the radar a little bit, maybe not so high profile. Get in touch. He's ready for you, ready and waiting. I know you had, I think you had Dirty Blonde on a little while back, didn't you?
Yes.
On your show.
Yeah, great.
I spoke to them as well, and I know they are keen as mustard to try and get an Oasis support slot. I think we should jointly start a campaign to make that happen. I think that would be a fantastic shout. I think they would be a great opening act for the Gallagher brothers, definitely, and they deserve it as well.
I think they really would be, and I think it would be great if Oasis did do that and did give upcoming bands that opening slot.
Yeah, give someone a chance that really needs it. That kind of, I think, would say a lot, you know, and probably ease a lot of the tension around like the ticket troubles that people had in terms of getting tickets for those shows and everything else as well. It would kind of show, it would be an air of willingness and, you know, camaraderie for the right reasons in music. As I say, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. I'll continue to watch what you do. I know we'll continue to chat in the background as well, and compare notes on people that come on. Folks, you know, people that come and do this stuff, you know, it's important. You know, everybody that comes on this show, and I know everybody that will be talking to our friend here, Baker, as well, about having come on and talk to him about music, they really appreciate it, because without people showing a little bit more of the personality behind the music, quite often it's very difficult when in a noisy world of lots of music being released every week for bands to be able to break through. And I know that they really appreciate being given that opportunity to just tell a little bit about why they've actually made the music, what's gone into it, the effort, the, you know, the reason they're passionate about doing it, etc. as well. And it does work. It makes people go and buy the music. I had a message from someone just this afternoon, said one of the last bands I interviewed with the Drafts, and they said, I just bought the Drafts album because I listened to the podcast. And that, I can tell you, makes everybody's day. So
yeah, that's what you want to hear. That, because ultimately that is why we do it, isn't it?
That is totally why we do it.
Yeah.
We don't do it. We certainly don't do it for the money, and we certainly don't want to do it for the fame. Because you know, if we wanted that, we'd probably sit naked in a bath of baked beans and swear a lot. You know, because that's much more likely to have an impact. Folks, this has been a wonderful, Baker. You've been listening to my music. If you've enjoyed this, please do go and share it with your network, your friends and family, and we'll see you again soon for another one of these. Until next time, bye for now.